Okay, no more tantrums. So we're going to be talking about the reasons why tantrums happen and what we can do practically to navigate these tantrums. Mems is my darling friend and sister, but also she's an early years Montessori educator and parent counselor. And I, Obiora Bolu, I'm a qualified teacher, parenting coach, and I own a numeracy and literacy club, after school club called Learn Tree. Right, order of the day, we'll have the intro, which is what we're having now. We'll have a presentation by Mems, and then followed by a presentation by myself. Straight after the presentation, there'll be a Q&A. Right, so who is this training for? It's for parents who are tired of tantrums and want to know how to navigate them when they happen, for parents who are worried about their child's angry outbursts. I do get that a lot, and parents get worried about how their children behave, and maybe the outbursts are getting worse or getting in the way of your relationship with your preteen or your teen. It's for parents who are taking the long view and want to encourage and nurture emotional mastery in your children. So you're not looking for a short-term type fix, you're looking for a long-term solution. Regardless of whatever class you belong to, two things are obvious. One, you want to put an end to the battles. Notice I said battles because sometimes the tantrums escalate because of the power battle, the power struggle that's going on. So you want to put an end to them. And you want your child to learn how to emotionally regulate themselves.
This training is not for you if you are only focused on short-term solutions. We want the people that are in for the long haul. It's not for you if you are not prepared to commit to the work required to uncover the underlying circumstances affecting your child's behavior. And it's not for you if your child has never had a tantrum, which we know is not even a thing. So
yeah. Okay. So our promise to you is by the end of this webinar, you will see and understand more clearly what's lurking behind your child's tantrum and outbursts. You'll understand the actions you are taking that could be contributing to your child's tantrums. We had a question like that. Is there anything I'm doing that could be contributing? You'll understand that better. And we will hopefully, well, this is the plan. We will equip you with the tools you need to navigate tantrums when they happen. In return,
we ask that you focus. So please do not be sitting in front of the TV. We're hoping that you're in a quiet room with no noise, the TV turned off, and your phone on silent, not chatting, so that you can really focus and get everything, that you'll be learning today. We've really taken out time to put these presentations together to give you the best. So our hope is that in return, you will do that the same. Remember to take notes. So whether you're writing on your paper, on your notepad, on your phone, take notes, because it's so good to go back to those notes to remember the things that you've learned.
Okay, it's now time for our first presentation by Mems, and it's focused on how to respond to get the best out of your child and you.
Hello everybody. My name is Meme Boham. Everybody calls me Miss Mems. I'm an early years educator. I work with children from birth to 6, and I also support parents and teachers with children from birth to 6. No more tantrums. This is such an awesome topic. And I just want to say a huge thank you very much to Obiora Bolu for inviting me to speak on this No More Tantrums webinar. I mean, Obiora has done a series of no more, she's done a no more series with no more shouting and no more homework hassle, which I was absolutely inspired by. So to be a part of No More Tantrums is such an honor for me. So I'm super thankful to be here. Thank you, Obiora. Without any further ado, let's get on with it. Let me pull up my slides and let's begin. Okay, so no more tantrums, no more tantrums. I've tagged this how to respond to get the best out of your child and you, because I genuinely believe that, yes, we are trying to do the best for our children, but we're also, it starts with you. It begins with you. So you're getting the best out of your child, but you're also getting the best out of you, because if you are okay, if you're responding to yourself the right way, then you can be okay to respond to your child. Like, if you're not okay, you can't give the child the right response. So it's how to get the best out of your child and you. All right, let's talk about tantrums now. What is a tantrum? I've just put out these words here for you to see, because this would help you see it see the full picture, right? So what is a tantrum? A tantrum is uncontrolled. The children have no control over it. It's overwhelming. It's explosive. These big words will help you see how these emotions kind of overpower the child. They have no control over it. It's an outburst. It's anger. It's frustration. And I think sometimes because the adult sees this anger and frustration, and we view it as a negative, which is why we respond to it with harshness, because we just feel like, no, I don't want to see this. But if we remember that it's a part of their development, just like every other thing. How did they learn to walk? How did they learn to talk? It was by being around people who are walking, people who are talking. How do they learn to control these overwhelming emotions and this burst of emotions that they get? How do they learn that? It's a part of development. They have to learn to deal with it like they learn every other thing. So I think that if we remember this, it'll give us a good idea. It would help us. It would just remind us to watch the way we're responding to the child, remembering that they have no control. It's overwhelming for them, but it's also a part of their development. Now, why? Why do they have these explosions? Why? When a child grows continuously frustrated with the way the adult consistently responds to them, right? It shows up in the form of tantrum. The adult is consistently responding in a way that is not appropriate for what that child needs, and it's always happening. They're continuously frustrated by it. You did it the first time, did it the second time, did it the third time. It's an explosion. Right, so that's what happens when the adult doesn't respond to the child the right way. It shows up in the form of a tantrum. It's also because of communication challenges. Either the child is having language delay. If the child has language delay, I think the explosion is even more, because they don't have the language to express it. Same with the language barrier. If they don't have the language to express how they're feeling, even a little bit, even like saying sad, they don't have that. You can imagine how much more explosive that tantrum will be to a child who has the language. But even despite the language delay or language barrier, the inability to communicate their needs to the adult understanding. So sometimes they could say sad, but it's not that they're sad. It's that they are frustrated that you've taken away that pen that they desperately wanted to play with. They don't have the language to communicate that. So this is not your pen, it's going away. It's not enough for them because they had plans for that pen, but they can't tell you, I will give it back to you. I will take care of it. They cannot communicate that to you, to your understanding. So what do? Major explosion. And sometimes, oh my gosh, major explosion, you give it back to them. But that doesn't solve the problem though, because now what that's telling them is that, okay, every time I have this explosion, I get what I want. So I'm going to keep having this explosion because this explosion equals get what you want. So the solution is not give them what they want. The solution is to communicate. We'll come to the solution later, but I just want to show you the things that could be the cause of a tantrum. It could also be that the child is tired, insufficient rest. They haven't had enough sleep. They're tired. They cannot just go to their bed and lie down. They don't understand what it is that they're feeling, how this tiredness has taken over them. And so it shows up in the form of a tantrum. It could be the same for hunger. You know what the food mood is like. A hungry man is an angry man. So, it could just be that they're hungry, and that's why they're having this explosion of an emotion, because they cannot express what they're feeling. They're not even aware that they feel is hunger. I mean, for some of us grown-ups, we're not even aware that it is food that's affecting our mood. All right. Now, there are 3 things that you should remember when your child is having a tantrum. Like I said earlier, they cannot control it. They need help learning how to control it. And that's where you come in. If they don't learn how to control it as a child, it's harder when they should become an adult. I mean, we've seen adults that have major tantrums, and you see them and you just wonder, come on, didn't you have control? You didn't have to act like that. But the truth is, they weren't shown. They didn't learn how to regulate their emotions. So they're constantly on edge and showing up, displaying these major, massive, grown-up adult tantrums because they were not shown how to control it. So that's our responsibility. And now let's look at the solutions. How do we help the children with these tantrums? Things that you should think about when your child is having a tantrum, when they're actually having the tantrum. Now, remember what I said earlier? The tantrums come up if you've consistently responded in a way that does nothing for them, right? So you just taking something away, you've done it. It's not doing it for them, so they have this tantrum. So when the adult doesn't respond in a way that the child understands or the child can even deal with emotionally, they show this tantrum. Now, while they're having the tantrum, stay with them. I know it's hard. Sometimes you want to lock them in a room just so that they keep quiet, but that's the worst thing you can do, because what is that saying? That's telling the child that when I don't know how to help myself, I get locked away. Oh my gosh, can you imagine what that's doing to a child psychologically? So stay with them. Now, I know that it's triggering, and sometimes staying with them when you're triggered is also counterproductive. So if you can't be with them because you're too triggered and you're going to react, find someone who can. Find someone who wasn't there when the thing happened, so it doesn't think, oh my God, it's a big deal. Just stay with them. Stay with them. Now, while you're with them, reassure them. Let them know that you understand what they're experiencing, right? Sometimes people feel like you speaking to them is validating, especially if in the midst of the tantrum there is some reactions, maybe they're throwing things or banging their head against the floor, whatever it is. You think that you being there and talking to them is validating that reaction, but it's not, right? Even in the reaction from the child, you are still verbalizing the expectation, right? You're verbalizing the expectation, you're still putting up the boundaries. So if your child is having a tantrum and they're hitting you, I'm sorry, I understand how you feel, but we don't hit. I understand that you're upset. You are not allowed to hit me. I understand that you're upset, but you're going to hurt yourself. So I'm going to hold you, okay? Take those deep breaths with them. Deep breaths, deep breaths. Surely you would have spoken to them about deep breaths before they even have the tantrum so that they know what to do to regulate themselves, right? So deep breaths in and out while you're holding them. If they're just screaming and shaking, I'm here. If you finish, when you're ready, when you're calm, if you want to cuddle, you can come to me. I'll give you a cuddle. Cuddle is not validating the throwing stuff. It's not. It's just telling them, I understand that you have no control over this. I am here for you, and I will show you how to gain control over this. Now, don't try to reason with them at this time. They cannot hear you. When your child is having a tantrum and you're saying, why are you doing this? You need to do this. You need to act in the other way. They cannot hear you when they're having that. Those conversations are for after the tantrum. After the child has had their meltdown, then you can now have the conversations where if you feel these big emotions, you can come to me. I'll give you a hug. That's where when you're feeling big emotions, try and count to 10. When you're feeling big emotions, try and take deep breaths. There are lots of different ways of dealing with those overwhelming emotions. I'm not going to go too much into that in this because of time, but yeah, there are different ways that you can communicate and teach your child how to deal with the big emotions when it overwhelms them. And then be calm. Be calm. Calm. I will keep talking about being calm because that's the number one thing. How you react to it, your calm is what helps the child's calm. Now, pay attention to what they are saying and what they are not saying as well. Sometimes it just takes observation. In my work with children, sometimes you notice a child is having a tantrum. You don't know why, you don't know where it's coming from. But if you pay close enough attention, you'll notice some patterns, and then you can link something that has happened with that reaction, with that tantrum, and then you understand, oh, okay, it's because of this, right? So you pay attention to what they are able to communicate to you, and you also pay attention to what they have no clue, what they cannot communicate. You notice that a tantrum is by so time, that's close to their sleep time. They always have it around this time they're tired. They need a routine that helps them to get up to their bedroom close to the time so that they can go straight to nap. Do you see what I mean? Now let's look at some more solutions, Now going into daily routines, this is going into the nitty-gritty of what to actually put in place. Now, children aren't told what to like. They come out, they don't know. We're teaching them lots of different things. And then if you notice, if you pay close enough attention, you'll see that children, it's almost as if they have no control over anything. You know, they wake up, you tell them when to wake up, you tell them when to brush their teeth, you tell them when to have breakfast and what to have for breakfast. You tell them put on their shoes, you choose their clothes, you choose their nappies, you choose their this, you choose the routes that they take to go to school. They go to school, you choose the school, you choose the uniform, you choose everything. They come back, you're still choosing. They literally are going out, doing whatever it is that we ask them to do, right? There is a period where they begin to want to take control of some things. And most of the times it's from two, that they start to understand, okay, this is the routine that they've created for me. This is the world that they've brought me into. Surely I can have a say about some things. Surely I should be able to do some things. I mean, think about it. A child is there, they've picked up this toy, they're just about to play with it. All right, it's bath time. There was no prior warning. There was no thing. I don't normally bath at this time anyway, but you're picked up and gone. And then they have a major meltdown and then you don't understand. They don't understand the routine. The routine has not been consistent and it's not been communicated. But if the child knows that they have a shower at so time in the evenings, all you need to do, and it's been consistent and it's been communicated, because we just take them, pull them. It's been communicated. Okay, so we're going to have a shower, then we're going to have a bedtime story, and then you're going to brush your teeth and go to bed. This is the routine. It's communicated to the child. They're playing. You tell them in 5 minutes, we're starting our bedtime routine. You don't have to use those words depending on the child's age. But in 5 minutes, we're going upstairs to shower. You've communicated it. When you come back in 5 minutes, it's 5 minutes now, it's time to shower. It's easier to get them to go when it's been communicated and when it's been a consistent part of their daily routine than when it's not been communicated. Right? It's easier to get them away from what they're doing when it's been communicated, when they've had reminders. It's a lot easier than when you just pick them up and expect them to. So a daily routine that is consistent will help the child with expectations. They know what to expect out of their day. They know what their day is going to bring to them. So it's a lot easier. It doesn't mean that they won't have a meltdown because they're enjoying what they're doing. But if it's communicated to them and they're given some prior notice, it's a lot easier. Now, keep track of sleep time and meal time. Understand when those are the times that they would have when you feel like they're going to be hungry, you feel like it's going to be sleep time. Start to prepare for it before, because you know that they're going to have a meltdown when they're hungry, right? So take note of the times, like have it a little more scheduled and structured so that they are not overwhelmingly hungry or tired when you're trying to do something. Do you see what I mean? Give them the tools to deal with their emotions. Give them the language to express their frustration. Like I said earlier, if they're going to be doing deep breaths or they're going to be counting, what are the tools that you've given them to help to deal with these explosive emotions? And what language have you given them to deal with their frustrations? I'm sad. Can I have a hug? I'm sad. Can you hold my hand? Now, these are the tools, but they're also able to communicate it. Sometimes some children will tell you, I'm feeling my chest. Can I hold your hand? They're able to communicate what they're feeling. So you know, okay, this is a big emotion. This is an explosive emotion. They may not understand why they're feeling it. Maybe they're feeling it's unfair that this has happened to me. They cannot verbalize it, but they can say, please hold my hand. Please be with me, right? Rather than ostracizing them. So give them the language, give them the tools, and then be introspective. How do you handle your own frustration? Be the example you want to see. Sometimes we tell our children, oh, don't throw, but when you get frustrated, when you get angry, bam, you throw things around the room, you slam doors, you don't know how to control your own emotion, and you're asking your child to. So we need to look inwards. How do we deal with it? How do we deal with that? When we are the examples, it's a lot easier for the children to follow us because they're just watching what it is that we do. Okay, so like I said, the way the adult responds to the child will determine how the child learns to manage their own emotions. Calm, 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 calm. I've said that. Say it again. Be calm. But in order for you to learn the art of calm, you must first address your triggers. Ask yourself difficult questions in introspection. Have times where you just retreat from everybody and you start to sense. Ask yourself those questions. Ask yourself the questions, the intrusive questions that make you think about the reasons you do the things you do, or the reasons you react the way you react. Some strategies to help you with introspection is, remember, your child needs to learn to gain control over the tantrums, and teaching them is your job. In introspection, when you're feeling the trigger, remember, it's my job. I teach them. They can't learn it if I don't teach them. So I know I'm triggered. But I know that this is my responsibility and I will do it. And the next thing in your introspection is to address the trigger. Ask yourself, why am I triggered by this? Why am I triggered by this tantrum? What thought pattern do I have about this tantrum? Do I just expect them to know? If I do, then I need to remember they don't just know. It's my job to teach them. Do I think that they're just pushing my buttons and testing me? If that's the thought pattern, then understand, no, they're not pushing your buttons. It may look like they're pushing your buttons, but they're coming into this world, and in order to understand the world, they need to experiment. They need to explore. So they will try and see, if I do this, how would you react? And if every time they've had a tantrum, you've come to give them what it is that they need, okay, that's what that tells them. And now you want to change all of a sudden, there's going to be some pushback, which looks like pushing your buttons. But the more you respond consistently the right way, the more they understand, okay, this is what support looks like. Okay, this is how I handle this. And the more you are transforming, the more they are learning as well. Right? So whatever strategy you choose to use, because there are many different strategies to use, I've given you a few here, but like I said, I can't give you everything here. So whatever strategy you want to use, whatever you need to change, because some people, like, I don't know your child, so I can't tell you for certain, do this, do this, do this. It's when I know the child, which is why with the clients I work with, I have to take out time, go to the client's house, understand the child, observe the child, know exactly what the child needs. Then we can create a strategy. For some children, it's creating a strategy. For other children, it's just giving the language. For other children, it's making them go to sleep earlier. Do you know what I mean? So it's understanding whatever strategy you need to use. Be calm. Be calm in your response, because your calm will teach them how to calm themselves. Remember, you cannot put out fire with fire. And I just want to thank Abira again. I just really, really want to thank Abira for this opportunity. Honestly, these no more series, no more webinar series have been super inspiring. They've been so helpful for parents. They've just been so helpful for parents, so helpful teachers. I'm going to tell you, it was 2020 that Abira did. Was it 2020? Yes, that Abira did No More Shouting, the first one. And that thing literally took me on a journey that it was such a transformation journey for me with the children in my classroom. Because imagine working with, at the time, I was working with 3 to 4 year olds, and I was triggered, But after listening to that, listening to it, it's like, I know this, but how do you actually, I had to go on a journey to prove to myself that you can do this without being triggered. And I've been able to do it since then. Now I've come to the twos that they call the terrible twos, and I'm still seeing the same results with them in my classroom. So Abira, thank you so, so much for this. This is just super inspiring. I'm so glad to be a part of it. And thank you guys for listening. Thank every one of you for listening. I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that it's inspired you. Like I said earlier, I do this, I speak to parents. I go into parents' homes. I've had clients from Nigeria. I've had clients from the UK. it's easier here because I live in the UK in Oxford. So going into family homes, observing what the issue is, working with the families, but I also do it over Zoom as well. So if you need to get in touch with me, you can get in touch with me on Instagram. I'm Miss Mems or at memsnige. You can send me an email at headstartng@gmail.com, or you can visit my website. But yes, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Mems. There was definitely a lot in there for us parents to glean from. It's always such a pleasure listening to you, Mems. And Mems has a wealth of experience when it comes to working in early years sector. And she's my number one person to go to when I have questions about how to respond to behavior that challenges, particularly for children aged 0 to 6. So do get in touch with Mems. Right, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Abiera Bolu, and I will be talking about dealing with tantrums in older years. So Mems, thank you, you've set me up nicely. Let's now look at how to deal with tantrums in preteens and teenagers. Now, tantrums in toddlers can be frustrating, but in older years, these angry explosions can become scary or worrying because the child is physically bigger and more likely to cause harm to themselves or others, or even damage property. This is why teaching them to regulate their emotions at a young age, just like Mems mentioned, is so key. But hey, if we've got older children, all isn't lost. I learned a bit later with my older one myself, so all isn't lost. Let's start with what's usually behind these anger outbursts, and then we'll move on to how to deal with them. Ready? At the heart of your child's outburst is a core need or a core fear. A need that's not being met or an underlying fear that's being triggered. Usually, it's a buildup of things that causes these frequent outbursts. So for instance, what seems like a little thing to you could have started from school or a poor night's rest or from continuous misalignment in their relationships with their peers or you, the parent. This need or fear is constantly being triggered throughout the day, and then you get the explosion and meltdown at home. I remember speaking to a parent just after the first lockdown, and her children had returned to school in September, and she was back at work. Her partner was working from home, but back at work. And it so happened, I don't know if you remember when we first went back to schools after lockdown, that if a child got COVID or a teacher got COVID in school, the whole class will go home for 2 weeks. It so happened that her 6-year-old at the time had to be sent off twice for 2 weeks each time. So in a short space of time as well. So in the space of, say, 4.5 to 5 weeks, he'd been home for a month. She started noticing during this period that he was getting increasingly angry frequently, crying a lot, fighting with his sibling, throwing temper tantrums. She just felt like she couldn't really settle him, and it was always like on edge. It was always tears. So this parent booked a free 30-minute call with me. And one of the things I help parents do is help you look at the same scenario, but from your child's perspective. See, he had been plucked out of school suddenly, twice. There's a pandemic going on. There's a lot of fear, a lot of talk that will be causing anxiety with children. He was missing his friends. He was worried about the dangers of COVID. There's a child or a teacher who's got it and he doesn't know what that actually means. You know, then it was very different how we felt about it. He was alone at home for long periods. Yes, the partner was at home, but he's working. You know what it's like. So he was at home compared to when he'd be in school interacting with his friends. He's having to adapt to a new way of learning. So many changes with that anxiety going on and uncertainty as well. And when the mom came back from work, he was unable to properly reconnect. That proper intentional reconnection that's necessary when our children have been away from us for long periods wasn't really happening because why? You know, she'll come back from home like most of us do, and we go into housekeeping mode. We start preparing dinner or getting the place or whatever it is we're doing. Hi, have you had a good day? And then we get on with it. So that proper reconnection that's necessary doesn't happen for a lot of us. But in this child's case, there was a lot more anxiety going on that wasn't being noticed or recognized for understandable reasons. So a core need for safety, a fear of uncertainty, danger, for example, that wasn't being recognized or met. Usually, beneath your child's anger is a lot of anxiety, and it's so important we don't miss that. So let's look at a list of common reasons for emotional outbursts. So these are common reasons, and I think you'll be able to relate to these. Actually, you let us know if any of them resonate with you. Common reasons for emotional outbursts and tantrums and anger outbursts. What's going on underneath? Number one, I'd say, not feeling seen. So when a child feels that they're not seen or heard by the parent, by us, the parent, they're not being listened to. How many times have you heard your child say, "You're not listening to me"? That's exactly what they're saying. They don't feel seen or heard. You're not listening to them. They feel ignored. It's almost like I'm not there, or what I'm saying isn't important. Feeling ignored can be emotionally or physically. Not being noticed or acknowledged for them, for who they are, feeling abandoned, rejected, feeling left out, whether it's at school or at home. It doesn't matter what you are doing or what your intention is. What matters is how they're receiving it and perceiving it. If there's that feeling that nobody listens to me, I'm always being ignored, that feeling of abandonment or rejection that may have come from earlier instances or whatever it is, if that underlying fear is constantly being triggered, then you could have, these outbursts for what you think are little things, but actually it's just that you have triggered a bigger explosive that's going on underneath. Remember, when outbursts are frequent, it's possible and very likely that these feelings must have been triggered regularly enough for it to become a belief. And when it's a belief, it's triggered more quickly. So it's very possible that these things have been happening consistently enough for them to believe that nobody ever listens to me. Nobody ever cares about me, that kind of thing. It doesn't matter if that's not your intention or not. Right, let's look at another thing, common thing that leads to these emotional outbursts and anger in our preteens or teenagers. Not feeling valued, feeling put down. How many times have you heard your child say, "It's not fair," not feeling like they're being treated fairly? Whatever you might think, you're treating them fairly, but if they just don't feel that way, then there's something that we are misaligning. And it's very important that we take a step back and observe, rather than saying, "No, I'm fair, I know what I'm doing." They're not feeling like they're being treated fairly. One of the questions we'll be answering later on, someone asked a question about sibling rivalry and how do I deal with, the different accounts that the different children give me, or the two children give me are different. How can I properly stop the fights? That example of fighting with siblings is one of the most common, typical examples of why our children don't feel like they're being fairly treated. And the quickest, easiest thing I'll say to you is your role when your children are fighting, I had to learn this the hard way, is you should not play judge and jury. We go in there, we try and listen to the facts, and we try to play judge and jury. But actually, when you do that, one person or both people would definitely feel like it's not fair, because you're going there listening to the facts, but they are arguing based on their feelings. That's what's happening. It's an explosion. It's not based on a logical sequence of events. It's actually how I'm feeling and you're making me feel this way. That's what people argue about. It's not the facts. So you're going there trying to fix the facts, and you're actually making things even worse. So there are better ways to handle the arguments between children, but don't be judge and jury. I had to learn the hard way. Another thing about not feeling valued is not being allowed to express yourself freely, even in anger. Dare I even say, especially in anger, not allowing our children express themselves freely. So when they have to bottle up this anger for so long, what you could get is the explosion. In fact, what you inevitably get is the explosion. Right, what else? Feeling unsafe. This is a big one. Feeling unsafe, whether it's physically or emotionally. And I also had a question about, hitting kids and whether, and I keep saying to parents, there is never a good reason to hit your kids. I promise you, there is never a good reason. It makes them feel unsafe. We are the number one people that they should feel very safe with. And when we do things like that, that scare them, it could cause this underlying feeling of unsafety that could be triggered with something that you consider little. So feeling unsafe, like I don't feel safe to express my emotions because I might be attacked or judged for them. I don't feel safe physically because I might be physically hit because of something I say or do, can actually cause more anger outbursts, believe it or not. The question was, despite my scolding and flogging, why is my child still throwing tantrums? Well, that's your answer, because it doesn't work. It's not helping them. It's actually harming them. And I have to be honest with you. There's no other way to say it. That's the truth. Feeling overwhelmed, feeling constantly criticized, like it's always my fault. And I know our children feel that way. Sometimes it's like, I'm always being criticized. It's always my fault. If we go back to the sibling rivalry argument, when you look at both cases, you'll find that consistently you keep finding out or deciding or judging that it's one person's fault more often than not. Or you'll have a child that say, you always say it's my fault. Once they believe that, whether that's the fact or not, once they've got that message that it's always my fault, then you're more likely to be triggering angry outbursts. So it's so important. Feeling unsafe is another thing. Now, the next one, this one is a big one, especially for 2-year-olds, yes, but especially for teenagers. Feeling controlled. It's such a big one, because the teenage years are where you're really, really, from 2, you're trying to exert your independence. But as a teenager, you are aware that you are going out into the world very soon to be independent. You are gravitating more to your peers. You are doing a lot of things more independently on your own. It's not that you don't need your parents, but you really, really need your independence to feel confident, you want to feel safe in yourself and your decisions. So when you're feeling controlled, anybody feeling controlled, that is such a trigger that could lead to anger. And a lot of times as parents, we try to control our kids. Same thing as teachers, we do that sometimes, a lot of times, trying to control the students to get them to do what we want them to do. So always being told what to do, not having any say in the decisions, not allowing the child to just be them. I know that when people hear me say, let your child be themselves, sometimes what they're hearing is let them do whatever they want. It's not the same thing. Feeling out of control is two sides of the same coin, feeling too controlled and feeling out of control, uncertain, unsure. All these things lead to anxiety. Right, let me know if you can relate to any of these so far. And the final thing, and I know there might be a bit more, there might be more, but they'll all be linked to these that we've mentioned already, is feeling inadequate, not good enough, feeling humiliated, shamed, embarrassed. I just don't feel good enough. And that could be at school, that could be at home, feeling incompetent. Sometimes when we do things for our children all the time and we're always trying to get involved and do it for them, you actually make them feel incompetent, like they can't do it. And that could trigger that resentment or anger towards themselves, like, why am I not good enough to do this? Or maybe sometimes when there's comparison, why am I not good enough? And that could just boil inside and whoop, comes out. And last but not least, probably the most important, I don't know, is what Mem's already mentioned, anger. Hunger and anger. Studies have actually been done and proven that hunger is a real thing. Being hungry and tired is a real thing, and it can definitely cause your temper tantrums and explosions. I know that I'm less, I'm more likely to lose it if I was tired. There's tired and hungry, and studies have been done, it's been proven. So that's something to definitely look out for in our children. When we look at teenagers, I've already talked about control, but I just wanted to remember that they are trying to find their way in the world. Preteens, teenagers, they're trying to find their way in the world. They're trying to find where they fit in. They're spending more and more time with their peers. Our rules and punishments can be very irritating because it just feels like a block to them trying to express themselves. We have to find a way to come alongside with them, not to stand in front of them and be an obstacle. That's not our role, because in the end, they'll find ways to deceive us. That was another question I got. Why are preteens deceitful? So I'll answer, these questions after this presentation. In some cases, you find that your teenagers have learned to bottle up their emotions in their younger years because they were trying to please us, because they were trying to be the good kid, because they knew that, their expression of anger resulted in them being punished or told off or hit in some cases. So they bottled it up. But now they've got to their preteen years, their hormonal changes going on, they're teenagers, and they just let it out. They find it much more difficult to keep it in. So if your teenager is having a lot of explosive outbursts, it could just be that what they've bottled up for so long is coming out now. There's a way to help them through this. And it's not by actually attacking them or shouting at them or trying to put it in stop them from doing it. It doesn't work. So before you react to your child's anger, remember that underneath that anger is usually a lot of fear and anxiety. Their anger is difficult for us to cope with, but it's very, very difficult for them to cope with. It's a cry for help. It's a cry for help. They are, in fact, what you see your child displaying when they're angry is just the reflection of what the turmoil that's going on inside. If it's triggering for you, just imagine what's going on the inside. If it's irritating to you, just imagine the frustration that's going on the inside. Their stress levels are going up. They're not calm and happy and regulated and displaying that. No, they're dysregulated. Their stress levels are going up. You want to help them. And that's why we're moving on to what can we do? What can we do? It's a cry for help. They're asking for our help in their own way. They're not really able to control this behavior. What can we do to help them? So I've broken it down to 4. Remember, I'm a teacher, so I've broken it down into 4 things that we can do, and I've tried to make them memorable. So let's see if it helps. I better mention this because this is quite important, actually. What we're trying to do is help them minimize the frequency and intensity of the tantrums. And we want to help them process their emotions better. So we want to minimize the frequency, definitely we can, and the intensity over time. So if your child is having very explosive tantrums right now and they're happening all the time, it doesn't need to be happening all the time. We can help them minimize the frequency and intensity. And I'm not talking about bottling up emotions, because that will just be much worse. Frequency and intensity over time, whilst you're also helping them process their emotions a lot better. So let's go back to awareness. Awareness is the first thing that we can do to help them. And by being here at this webinar, we've already started that process. We're the first step. Because becoming aware of the why behind your child's tantrum allows you to be more empathetic. If you seek to understand the underlying issues affecting your child's behavior, then you're better able to meet them with empathy, which is actually what they need. By observing their behavior, reflecting on the likely patterns, getting curious about what's behind their behavior. Now that you know that they're always underlying issues, you're aware of it, you want to start seeking to understand. So what you want to do is, when you find these patterns, you want to discuss your observations with someone who might be able to reason with you, someone wise who can reason with you, who understands these things, someone who will not dismiss you and say, oh, please, there's nothing wrong, they're just a crazy child. Someone who can understand and can talk to you and help you see what's going on behind as well. And as you talk about it, they're able to help you understand better. Don't be quick to judge or label your child. Be patient and observe. Move from judgment to curiosity. Look beneath the surface, not at their behavior. And that will really help you in that first step. And now let's move on to B. Next, be prepared. And that means prepare yourself and prepare them. So this is something that's happening. It's been happening. You're now aware of the underlying reasons. You've done some reflection. You understand the patterns. Prepare yourself. Preempt their behavior and your response. You want to regulate your own emotions so that you're better able to respond to them. If you're not prepared for how you're going to respond, you are more likely to react because you yourself are being triggered. You need to learn to be calm. You need to, and this is something that we actually have to learn and to do. It's not just something that we will be able to do automatically. It's not that straightforward. We have to learn to be calm, to look after ourselves and preempt this behavior and prepare our response. Take the focus away from you. It's not about you in the moment. It's about their core need or their core fear being triggered. Think about yourself as the strong, calming, secure presence for them. It's also very important that we don't walk on eggshells. It's just so important. We shouldn't walk on eggshells around them, because if we do that, we are sending the message that they get what they want by their behavior. And we don't want that. We're just going to make things worse. At the same time, you don't want to escalate their behavior with your own outbursts. So being prepared is not saying no is going to happen, so avoid it. No, I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying no is going to happen, so be prepared to fight them. No, be prepared to be calm, to respond. And C, which is our next one, tells you the best way to respond. C is connect. C is connect. Now, I cannot stress in parenting how important connection is. You must have heard this all the time, but it really is the most important thing. Our relationship with our children is all about connection. I always say to parents and to teachers as well, because I'm a teacher myself, that when we don't connect properly with our students or with our children, we can't influence them positively. You just can't. It's very difficult. In order to influence somebody, you've got to have a connection with them. So meet them with empathy and compassion. Awareness and being prepared helps us connect better. And connection results in positive outcomes. Control leads to negative outcomes. So we want to move away from control to connection. Again, this is not validating the behavior. It's meeting the need and helping them calm down. Sometimes parents think that if your child is throwing a tantrum and then you show support and you're there for them and you're with them, that you are validating the behavior. No, you're not. Because what you're doing is you're focusing on the need behind the behavior and you are attempting to meet the need. You're not focusing on the external behavior. Depending on, how old your child is. For your teenager, connection at that time could just be you letting them know they know I'm here for you and we can talk about this after. You might have to give them that space. I'm not asking you to connect by going to try and give a hug in the moment, because if your child is older, that just may not work. But connecting, you'll know how to connect with your child. Just understand that connecting should be making them feel safe around you. So a good way to think about this is your tone, your body language, your words. In fact, your words are the least important of those three things I said. Your tone, definitely very important, your body language, and then your words. All those things should be sending the message that I love you. I love you. Regardless, I love you. Because when we respond or when we react in ways that show anger and aggression, when they're angry, they're feeling more disconnected, and that is escalating the tantrum. The more we can connect by showing I love you, I support you, I'm here for you, I understand what you're going through, I understand the need behind, your behavior, and I'm here for you, they will trust you, trust us more. They will trust that they have our support, and this helps them calm down quicker next time. So what you do now will have a bigger impact next time because your trust is being built. Just think about it this way. The solution will never be a short, quick, fast solution. Nothing good and worth it comes like that, let's be honest. And think about it, they have over time been having these temper tantrums. Maybe we haven't dealt with it for, in some cases, for 13 years, but we haven't dealt with it properly. We have to give ourselves enough time, be patient and be consistent. If you want another C, consistency is a good one. And committed, another C. You know, you want to be patient, consistent, and just stay with it. Connection is love. I talk to parents extensively about love, because I know that we love our children, but it's always very important to understand how are we showing them that we love them, because sometimes what we show them and what we know don't actually align. So connection is showing our children that we love them regardless, they are safe with us. Avoid shaming them for their anger. It will only make them feel worse about themselves, and it will make the problem worse. It would cause them, in a lot of cases, to bottle up their anger, and then you have a bigger explosion anyway. Don't try and do it all at once. Just pause. Don't rush to react. Awareness, being prepared, connection. And this brings me to the fourth and last one, D, discipline. This means to teach, to disciple. See, when there hasn't been clear communication and teaching first, then consequences can just feel like punishments. It's so important that we teach our children how to regulate their emotions, teach them how to behave. Communication and teaching will actually help the children to understand what the environment, how to navigate the environment, understand better. You're less likely to have tantrums. But when you haven't properly communicated or taught them first how they are to respond in a particular situation without being controlling, but teaching and guiding, then actually they're better able to, they have a more vested interest in what's going on. You're less likely to lose it because you've been part of the process. Discipline is teaching. Teaching is essential before any realistic expectation can be put on a child. We can't expect a child to behave in any particular way that we want if we haven't properly not told them, taught them. Teaching requires patience. Teaching requires consistency. Teaching is not telling you. Teaching is helping and guiding and showing and modeling and you know, that kind of thing. MEMS and I have a detailed discipline course. It's going for under £10. So I'm just going to encourage everyone, just get the course. It will make it so much easier, because MEMS talks about the art of discipling toddlers. I talk about what discipline is, what discipline isn't. It's a lot of detail. There's a workbook to go with it. It's all going for £10. My best advice is just get that discipline course and properly understand what discipline is. And I stress this because discipline, in my opinion, and from what we've seen a lot in the parenting world, is discipline is the make or break in parenting. Get it right, you see your child grow authentically within safe and healthy boundaries. Get it wrong, and this usually has lasting impact on how your child sees themselves, and that affects how they behave. So discipline is crucial. There isn't enough time for me to go through the whole thing about how to discipline, what discipline is, but I'll tell you now things like naughty corner, taking things away from your children, hitting them, shouting at them. That's not discipline. That usually makes things worse. And that's why, despite the fact that you've tried all these things, you're still seeing the angry outburst, because actually it's making it worse. So get the course. It's under £10. I think it's £9.86 or something like that. And it'll help you see what discipline actually is and how to properly disciple, teach our children so that they can live authentically, that's be themselves within healthy boundaries. When you feel safe and yourself within healthy boundaries, there's no need for tantrums. You're less likely to throw a tantrum. You're more likely to come down quicker from a tantrum. You're more likely to trust the people around you. You don't have to tantrum. Your needs are better met. So that's so crucial. So I'll just encourage you to please do that. I'll put the link. It's on my website. Do get the course. It'll help you all. Now, if you feel equipped to deal with tantrums now from 2 to 18 and beyond? Just, drop a message in the comments. I really hope that this short presentation from both of us has helped you understand how to deal with tantrums, understand what's behind it first, and how to deal with it when your child throws a tantrum. It's now time for questions, and Mems and I have a few questions that have been sent to us that we're now going to answer live. Right, first question. Okay, Mems, this is for you. How do I handle my 2-year-old in public when he is having a tantrum?
Okay, so when I saw this question, I was like, oh, I love it, because I remember with me, my son is 11 now, but when he was much younger, I knew from the moment I had him that I was going to parent differently. I knew it, And so there were so many times where I'm in my head and I'm thinking, okay, this will look weird too, because I had him, moved back to Nigeria, and was raising him in Nigeria. So you can imagine the aunties and the grandmas when they're looking at you like, what is this English you are speaking? So first off, I just wanted to say to this person, you know what to do. You're on your learning journey. You know inside of you that I know that I know what I'm doing. But sometimes when you're in public, you act in a way that you think people expect you to act. So you want to respond to your child's tantrum the way you see other people respond to the tantrum, or the way you think that you're supposed to respond to the tantrum that makes you look like a good parent in people's eyes. So first off, from all your learnings, from everything that you know of being there with the child, of first preparing them before you go out, because if you're out in public, if there's not enough preparation, that tantrum will be escalated. But if you prepare them before you go out, they know what is expected and they know what is, you've just prepared them for wherever you're going, right? So for instance, you're going to a shop, we're going to the shop, we're just going to pick this and this and this. Remember to connect first. So we're going to the shop. I know that you might want to go to the toy aisle. So we'll go and you have a look. We're not able to buy anything, but you can have a look for 5 minutes or whatever. Then you set your timer, but mommy needs to pick up a few things and then we're leaving. I've prepared them before I've even gone to where I'm going. So when you get to that aisle, you're connecting with them. They go off, they do their thing. You give them their own time. It doesn't have to happen all the time, but this is a good way to show sometimes that you are also aware that they need their own time in the supermarket, or they need something for themselves. So you have that time with them. Your timer goes off. All right, now we're going to buy mommy's things, and then we're going to buy the things for the house, and then we're leaving. So you've prepared them before they've gone in, you've prepared them while they're in there. So when you're leaving, there isn't much of a tantrum. But let's say it's not something that you normally do, and this is that tantrum. You know what to do, connecting, communicating. I understand you don't want to leave, but we need to leave right now. Right? You're verbalizing what you need. You're being with them in the tantrum. You're expressing, I know that you're upset. You don't want to leave the shop or whatever. You don't want to leave your friend's house. I understand how you feel, but we need to leave now. You can let them know 5 minutes before they need to go. We're leaving in 5 minutes. When the 5 minutes is up, it's time to go now. Sometimes if your child is kicking and screaming, you can let them know, I'm going to pick you. I understand that you're upset. I understand that you don't want to leave, but we have to leave now. I'm going to pick you up. You pick them up and then you leave to where you're going. But always remember that you know what you're doing. You've got this. Have your confidence with your response with your child, and don't let people be in your ear and react, because one thing that happens to us is like, oh my god, this is public, this is public, I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. So you react instead of responding exactly the same way you would respond if you are in your house and there was nobody watching. So first off, be confident, know that you know what you're doing, and from everything that you've learned on your journey, just do what you know to do. That would be my answer to this question.
I love how many times you kept saying, I understand. validating their feelings doesn't mean, therefore, I understand, therefore you can stay here till tomorrow. You're still holding your boundary, but you're validating their feelings. I love that. Right, we've got quite a few questions. So next one. My 4-year-old son finds it difficult to communicate verbally. He uses cry and tantrums most times. Please, how can I make him stop? And how do I communicate with my child during a tantrum? I think you've answered the second half.
Yeah, someone has just asked this question, this same question, crying, most of the time instead of expressing themselves. And this is very, very common. It is our role, like I said, to help them communicate what it is that they're feeling. If they don't know, it's how do we, even we don't even express, like when we're having a stressful day, we just cover, push it down, ignore, and then explode, right? So if you don't even know how to express how you're feeling, how does your child know how to express what they're feeling? That's why the only language they know is cry. That's all they know is cry, because there's no communication. So sometimes it's just in the communication. It's just in the expressing yourself, teaching them how to express themselves. Yeah, so that's how they're communicating, and it's our role to help them to communicate what they need. Remember, I said about preparing them. You're preparing them. What is it? It's a bath time, preparing them for bath time. This is what we're going to do. Letting them be a part of their routine as well is another way to go, right? Obviously, it depends on the child. This is why these kind of answers, you can't give a definite this and that, because I don't know the child and I don't know your exact situation. But I would say, if you're preparing them for transition, sometimes you get children crying during transition. So when they're transitioning from one thing to another, even like when children come into school, they come in, they're fine, and then it's time to go for a walk, and then they're just crying because of the transition. Now, what we do is we prepare them, which is why you have the children a bit more settled at school, because it's more structured. They know that after this we're doing, and even when they don't know, we tell them. So you verbalize, okay, we're going to do this. So prepare them for the things that you're going to do. For the person who is saying that, they're crying for every single thing, for feeding time, bathing time, prepare them for what it is that you need to do. Let them know, we're going to have a bath in 5 minutes. We're going to brush our teeth now. Then let them do things like choose which toothpaste you're going to use. Would you like, or which toothbrush? Let's say they have toothbrushes. Or do you want me to hold the toothbrush with you, or do you want to hold it by yourself? Involve them in the things that you're doing, before they even do it. So kind of preparing them. So your way of preparing them for whatever transition it is by involving them, making them a part of whatever it is that you're going to do with them. I hope that answers the question of the person that sent a direct message, and the number 2 question as well.
So thanks for that, Mems. Right. Mems, my toddler, if 3 years of age, cries a lot. Okay, I think we've answered this one. And gets angry easily, thereby causing noise everywhere. I'm tired. I think this one we've answered it, but do you want to say anything about it?
No, like I said in the beginning, I get it. It can be a bit, oh my gosh, like this is so no, why are you crying for everything? But just remembering that it is our responsibility to help them regulate their emotions and communicate what it is that they need. Like if you're getting this tired, is like, but remember, that's what we're supposed to do. That's our role, so deal with that trigger too, of what is getting you, trying to remember that is your responsibility, trying to remember that's so that you have empathy and you're not dealing with it like tearing your hair out. Look after yourself so that you are okay. Have your go-to person that you can be like, okay, I'm feeling like this. Because sometimes it's our personal stresses and our daily struggles that now trickle out in our children, and we start lashing out and reacting, so have your person where you can just be like, listen, I don't know what, Abira, Abira's my person, call it, listen, I don't know what this is, but you let it go in your therapy session so that you are present when you're with your children.
Absolutely. Okay, we've got a few more questions, and Mems and I are timekeepers, don't want to keep you here all night. So let's go to the next one. Why are preteens deceitful? Now, that one made me laugh so much. Now, of course, I understand the message the parent was asking. Why, the question, why are preteens deceitful? You're feeling like they are, but actually preteens are not deceitful. But when you find deceit coming in very quickly, even at a young age, where they're lying, they're pretending, they're acting like they didn't do that, or they're pretending, there's something called basically, when a parent or an adult or a teacher walks into the room and automatically the child just acts like, I was just reading. You didn't even ask them what they were doing. When you have behaviors like that, where they're trying to deceive you, trying to act like they weren't doing something even when they're not in trouble, lying, they are afraid of your reaction. It's as simple as that. They're not sure, either they're not sure of your reaction because your reaction is unpredictable. That could be one, they're not sure. Or they could be experiencing with you regular, your outbursts. They are just trying to prevent what they think is going to happen from happening. That's all it is. They don't want that thing to happen, so they try and deceive, manipulate in order to get what they want. If my child knew that if he asked me for this thing, I will give him. Why does he have to deceive me? But if he knows that, and this is nothing, a big thing to do with tantrums and children's behavior is trust. When they trust us, okay, I know that my mom is not going to give me this today, but I know that she'll give me tomorrow. I know that when she says she'll give me this, she'll give me this. I'm less likely to want to go and take it. I know that even when she finds out that I've taken something without asking, she's not going to shame me and make me feel so bad about myself. So I don't have to lie. And my children have said that to me sometimes when they've done something wrong. They're the first to come and tell you, I got a yellow card, I got whatever. And, my son was saying to me how his friend said to him, why are you going to tell your mom what happened? He's like, why wouldn't I tell her what happened? This is something that has happened. Why wouldn't I tell her? And when he said that to me, it just made me realize, yeah, you would want to hide it if you were worried about the outcome. So the best thing, if you want your preteen to stop being deceitful, you have to not be as controlling. You have to be understanding. You need to be flexible. You need to build trust. And that way, over time, you'll find that they don't feel the need to lie. Okay, I'm going to move on. I hope that answered your question well. Why does my son refuse to listen to whatever I say until I mention the word cane? I thought, wow, I have to put this one up. Why does he prefer to do what he wants rather than what I know is best for him? And that's similar to a question we had in the chat about, should we let our 3-year-old do what they want to do, even though we know what's best for them? I said this in my recording. I know that some people use smacking, hitting, I don't know, whatever object. I can tell you now, it doesn't work. If it worked, you will not be experiencing what you're still experiencing now. It doesn't work. It just makes your child more afraid of you, and then they graduate to become better liars. I've got to lie more to prevent this thing that is so scary for me. There's no child that's been hit by a parent that is not terrified, afraid. They may not act that way, but they are scared. Nobody wants to be hit. Nobody wants to be hit. So when you say they're not listening until you mention cane, they have been conditioned to respond when you bring something that you're going to use to hit them, because they don't want that. So what you're doing, and I say this in my classroom sometimes, that some children have been conditioned to only respond when the teacher raises their voice. So they're waiting. It's almost like when you're not raising your voice, you're not serious. They're waiting for you to shout, then they respond. And that's what you've trained your child to do. That when I bring the cane has more power than me, is what you're saying. So they wait for it before they listen. And it sounds to me, when you say they don't want to do what I know is best for them, it sounds to me like you are trying to, you may not like this word, but control the child, control the outcome. And that never works. Sorry, I'm just going to let some more people in. Control the child, control the outcome. It sounds like that's what you're actually trying to do. Oh, sorry, I'll go too fast. Okay, because even when you know what's best for the child, you still want to present it in a way that they can take some ownership and you are working with them. Once you have that control in hand and then you try and use an object to control them, you are not going to get a good response. I can tell you that already. You will not get the response that you want. So yes, that's the reason why it doesn't work. I'm going to move on to the next question now. I have a 7-year-old boy. I can't get him on the same page with me. Sometimes when I'm trying to tell or instruct him on something, he just doesn't listen. He starts crying, shouting, yelling. When I try to explain, all I hear is leave me alone. If you go back to the things I said about what makes children throw tantrums, he must just be tired, fed up. I'm not kidding. I don't mean tired, want to sleep. If someone is saying leave me alone, it just feels like this is too much for me. I'm overwhelmed. You know, I've spoken to parents, and sometimes when I hear what they expect their child to do, I'm like, I have experience with so many children, mainly from the age 4 all the way to 18. I can tell you when your expectation is unrealistic. And sometimes we don't realize this. We're trying to get them to do something. We expect that we told them 3 times so they should get it. Some of you, we've been telling you for 100. No, think about it. Some of the things I'm not doing in my life, like how to eat properly or exercise properly, I've been told over 100 times. I'm still not getting it right. So when you think you told your child yesterday, I told you yesterday, so you need to explain this to the child again. So sometimes that's the issue. Our expectation is so different from where the child actually is. And that could cause overwhelm. When I read this, the crying, the shouting, when I'm trying to tell or instruct, move from telling, instruct to helping. Very few times do I ask my children to go and clean their room. Most times I say, right, let's go and tidy your room. And we go together. Hey, let's make your bed. And we do it together. And I'm having a conversation with them whilst I'm doing. Most times that's the way, because actually telling, instructing, and you don't realize how many times we're doing that could really put the child in a position where they just think this is just too much for me. And they've got to do it in your time, when you say, how you say, it's a lot. And I think we forget the impact that it has on us. A few more short questions, Mems. This one, I would like your opinion on it, but I'm just going to start us off. If someone has a 3-year-old, they used to yell, they used to spank their child, but now they're an intentional parent, but they still don't know how to make the child understand the consequences of their actions. The parent thinks, I really want you to help us out with this one. The parent thinks that, or says that the child is more naughty now that they're intentional. So this is a classic, I like it, it's a classic case of now I'm an intentional conscious parent and now my child is misbehaving more. When I was yelling and spanking, they were behaving better. It's exhausting. What should I do?
Okay. Oh, bless this person. I feel your frustration. I would just like to start by saying, I would love to know what this person feels being intentional about, because sometimes it goes from shouting and reacting to, I'm not going to shout, 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 and just suppressing. And we think that just suppressing, but still having the anger and irritation about those behavior, right? Your child is doing what they've always done. They're doing what they did when you were spanking. They're still doing it. The only thing is that you're not spanking anymore. So it's irritating you more, right? Because when you change your method, the child doesn't realize, oh, you've changed your method, let me change. That's not what happens. It's when you now start to build the connection, when you now start to understand their needs, when it is now from a place of you being a guide and knowing that your role is to guide them as they grow into young adults and not to control, right? When that changes, that's when the change with the child, basically what happens is you start to respond to their needs more appropriately, right? And when you respond to their needs more appropriately, then there becomes the change in both you and them. I'll give an example with this one. There was a child that I started to work with, and this was a home client. So I would go into the house and the child would just scream about everything. They would bang their head against the floor. Actually, this was the first time I was seeing that kind of tantrum really hard. In fact, they were just quite mischievous because there was a lot of attention seeking for attention, you know, and this child was 2. And so me coming into the house, I first of all had to understand, what is this dynamic? What is this child? I'm not gonna lie, there were some triggering things, because I'm like, what is this? Why is this child behaving like this? It was a trigger, but I had to remember, okay, it's not about getting triggered. It's about understanding, supporting this child, helping them to regulate this emotion, right? This need for mischief is not normal. This need for attention is not normal. This get attention anyway is not normal either. So what am I going to do to support them? So when it switches from getting irritated at the behavior to how can I support this child, then that's when the journey begins, right? So it switched for me, and I'm like, okay, how can I support this child? And then I started to observe, what exactly is this? This is this child. You have an older sibling. Your older sibling has the personality. You are the young one that is trying to see me, look at me, pay attention to me. So anything your sibling does to you, you know. So what is it? This is an attention thing. So I'm like, okay, this child is trying to shine. They're trying to show themselves. They're trying to become. So I needed to start having separate time. So before, I would come in and we would all be together. But I needed to now start to build that trust with that child, build my relationship with that child, build my relationship with the sister. So when I started to connect with her and make it fair, so she knows, okay, now this is your time. Okay, now this is time for both of you. Okay, now this is your sister's time and you can do this coloring. Now this is about both of your time. Sharing the attention between everyone. It didn't just change automatically, but when I focused on connecting, then that was what helped the child to now notice, okay, so when she's doing something dramatic, I'm like, okay, do you want to, and I see it's just being mischievous. I'm like, okay, do you want us to play music? Should we play some music? Would you like to do some dancing later? And she'll look at me, yes, all right, let's finish this and then we can dance, right? So I'm giving her that attention she wants, but not when she wants it. Right? And so we finished doing what we're doing. Now let's go to the kitchen. We can play music and we can dance. And she does her little dance and then we come back to whatever. And that it's the connecting. When you focus on connecting, you know, then the other things fall in place. But you need to understand what is it that the child, and that takes observing. It takes watching the child. It takes building connection. It takes time. Things can't just happen overnight. But I would like to say, when you say you are an intentional parent, what does that look like? I think we need to start from there.
I love that, Mems, because I hear that word a lot. I hear conscious parent, but actually sometimes people think it's moving from controlling to permissive. No, there's a lot of work in between, which is the intentionalities that I'm intentionally guiding, supporting, teaching, showing, connecting, helping. That's what it is. And that's where the work really is. And I just wanted to pick up on one more thing here where it says, if I threaten to not let her go out and play, she doesn't even seem to connect the punishment to her previous behavior. And that's because there's no connection between the two. What she did and saying, I'm not going to let you play outside, are not linked. And I always say to parents, when it's not connected, no learning is happening. It's got to be, and that's why it's got to be a consequence or something that is very closely following what has happened. And really, before you can even put that consequence, teaching and communication must have happened, or else it's just a punishment. Punishments don't really work to change the behavior the way you want. They just end up making the child either scared or find ways to lie or bottle things up, and we don't want it. Okay, right. I wanted to answer a question. Okay, this is just a simple one. I wanted to put it because I thought in case people are asking, at what age does tantrum stop? And we've answered why don't they give you reasons for tantrums? I would say tantrums never stop as long as emotional regulation and learning hasn't happened. They will never stop. You have adults who still throw tantrums and you've worked with them. Some of them are your bosses, some of them are friends, whatever. Tantrums don't stop if you don't learn how to regulate your emotions. Because you have to think, this is one thing that's quite important to note. The tantrum is happening from the emotional, you can call it irrational part of the brain. It's not something that you can easily control. In order for you to control it, really, you want to be using, more the front part of your brain, the thinking part, the logical thinking part. The child finds it difficult to give a reason for a tantrum because they are tantruming from the illogical, irrational part. They can't really reason with you, and that's why you can't reason with them during a tantrum as well. If I was losing it, if you had a friend that was losing it and you were trying to reason with that friend at the time, they find it very difficult to hear or understand you. But what you want to be doing is help them calm down so that they can re-engage their thinking part of their brain. And we all know, we must have heard, that thinking part of the brain that really helps you think logically really only develops when you're about 20, develops fully when you're about 24, 25. So expecting it from a 3-year-old, 4-year-old teenager, it's not that they can't think at all, but it's not even fully developed. So we need to help them. By us regulating our emotions, by us developing our thinking brain, we are helping them mirror us, and that's how their own thinking brain develops as well. So I just wanted to mention that one. And there's something final one. I need to talk about sibling rivalry, but final one, Mems, if you can help us answer this one. Do we encourage tantrums in any way as parents?
So encouraging tantrums, I'm guessing it means like, could we be responsible for the tantrums? Like, does our reaction worsen the tantrums or cause the tantrums? And yes, definitely, it definitely does. If you react, like I think I said in the beginning, when you don't understand what the child needs, right, consistently. So they've expressed a need or they've acted in a certain way, and your response to that was to take something away from them, or you've just responded the wrong way to that need. You've not met that need. The tantrum can, get worse, or like they can throw a tantrum because your response is not supporting their need in any way. So yes, it is possible for a parent to be responsible for the tantrums.
I totally agree. So how can I reverse the damage of punitive punishment? So if you've already been using punitive punishment, how can I reverse the damage? I think that is a beautiful question. And it's a question that is I want us all to realize that there is nothing that we have done that we cannot repair. And there's nothing, because our children love us, we are learning, we're all imperfect beings. So please hear this, we can repair our relationship, whatever we've done in the past. So if we've been using punitive measures in the past, you can clearly see they're not working. You have developed a fear in the child. Yes, we've all done it with the way we've reacted in the past. The first thing I'll say to you is this: you can correct this by building trust over time. In fact, I don't want to go too personal, but let's say at some point in my life, when I was a child, somebody had a conversation with me and made a promise to me. And I'll never forget. In fact, I remember how old I was. I remember where we were sitting. I remember what was said. And that promise was basically something like you might want to say to your child. You might want to address them and say, you might want to do it that way by addressing them and putting a final stop and say, you know what, I know that I've done this in the past, and I have a feeling that it would have really scared you and made you think so and so about me. Mommy has decided, daddy has decided that I'm never going to call you so-and-so names anymore. I'm never going to hit you anymore. You can say that once you've fully decided in your heart you're not going to do that. And then you are consistent, building trust. As you're consistent building trust, because straight away they might not believe you. It's through your consistency that they believe, and they will start to calm down and respond differently as well. But please remember this: if you ever fall back, maybe you tell your child, I'm never going to call you names anymore, I'm never going to hit you anymore. If you fall back and you do the same thing again, please don't blame the child, because that's something that happens when we make the mistake, and in our imperfection, we go and hit the child or shout at the child when we didn't want to do it before, and then we blame them and say, look at what you made me do. No, the child did not make you do it. You have full control of yourself. Nobody can make you do anything. You have full control. Please take ownership then and just say, look, I am so sorry, and do the work on your own. So you can reverse it. You reverse it by building trust over time, and you can do it by speaking to them first. I've got a question for you, Mems. How do I stop my 3-year-old from blowing raspberries and responding no whenever she's corrected?
Okay, before I answer that, can I just answer a question that was here? I just want to say, if your response, if your reaction to a child, you can sense in your heart that it's coming from a place of I will show you. If that's where it's coming from, it's not you, because you are not evil or wicked, right? If it's coming from somebody says that they asked their child to stand for 3 hours before the child took them seriously, if your response, your reaction to your child is coming from a place of I will show you today, you will see, that is wicked, right? If that's where it's coming from, then that's not who you are. We are not, the real you inside of you is pure and is love. That thing inside of you that feels the need to show is how you were raised. You are raised in a culture of I will show you. You are raised in a harsh reality. So it becomes normalized for you. And that's what you now do. And that's what you think that your children need. But there is no benefit for raising a child like that. I mean, parents, we know what it does, those kind of things did to us. You know, people are still recovering from trauma of what their secondary school mates, seniors did to them, not to talk of what their parents did to them. So if that's where it's coming from, it can't. There's nothing good or beneficial about that. So no, the child didn't learn and never do the thing again because the mom or whoever it is made them stand for 3 hours. No, they did. They are acting because they don't want to stand for 3 hours. It hurts. They were isolated. They don't want that to happen again. But it doesn't mean that they've learned what not to do. It doesn't mean that they've learned it doesn't mean they've learned to control their emotions. It doesn't mean that they've learned anything. They've not learned anything. And in fact, when you are not there to make them stand for 3 hours, they'll do whatever it is that they want to do. So I just wanted to answer that question, because when I saw that standing for 3 hours, it really broke my heart, honestly.
I didn't see that, Mems. Just before you go on to that question, I just want to say you have to think about it. If anybody was to, as adults, come, basically scare us and say, if you don't do this, I will do something to hurt you, we are very likely to basically conform to whatever demand that person is asking. It doesn't mean that we want to do it, and it doesn't mean we like them for it. Sometimes parents are so focused on getting their child to do what they want them to do rather than the relationship with them. And I work more with, teenagers and all of that. When it gets to that point where they are more independent and they don't have to fully depend on you, that's when you see the result of, when the child is very young and they, but when they get older, you want that relationship. When they leave your house in the 20s and 30s, some of us have left home and don't even want to call our parents, or we're doing it out of duty and obligation. So don't think about how can I get my child to do X, Y, Z. Please think about your relationship, because that's the most important thing. Human beings were born for human connection and relationship. That's what makes us thrive and do well in life, not for punishment and control and all those things. That's not what it's about. So thank you, Mems, for answering that. I want to please just take you back to that question, because I loved it about the raspberries and the 3-year-old shouting no when they're asked to do something. Whenever.
Okay, yeah. So with that one, I would say, when do they do it? Like, if you notice when they do those kind of things, like a lot of times it's attention, the child wants to, okay, I'm thinking in the classroom now, a child who's throwing raspberries, they get giggles and it excites them. So they want to do things that would cause the whole class to pay attention or to focus on them. If it's the same at home, the child is blowing raspberries for you to, I would just give them something to do with the raspberries. Like, I would ask them, oh, do you want to do some blowing, or should we play the pin the game, the tail on the fish game, or something else, like a blowing game with a straw or something. First of all, I would notice when they're more likely to do that. Is it when they're trying to get your attention, right? And the no as well. When is it? Yes, Abira.
I've got the person just message me to say, for example, the girl is turning the light on and off, and the mom is saying, can you stop doing that? And then she blows raspberries and shouts.
Okay, so that is a definite an attention. They want your attention. They want to connect, and that's why they're doing those things. Those things are to bring the attention to them. So what to do is to connect, and then when they're trying to get your attention, they need you. So you can just tell them, give me 5 minutes. I know that you need to play with me, or we need to have a conversation. You want to be with me right now. I'm doing this right now. Give me 5 minutes. You take your 5 minutes. They're still switching. Give me 5 minutes. You take your 5 minutes. You pause what you're doing. Connect. Sit with them. All right. So how was your day? What did it see? Once you've given them that connection that they need, they're fine. Right? So you connect. Have your conversation. How was your day? What did you do? Okay, let's draw a picture together. Actually be there present with them. When you've had that time, when you've given them that time, then they'll give you their own time. All they want is see me, look at me, I'm here, give me some of your attention. It doesn't have to be 1 hour, literally 10, 15 minutes. Actually do something with them, play a game with them, and they'll forget about that, all those things they're doing just to get your attention.
I think I like that, because you're right, it's attention seeking and it's just about connecting. And there's a big thank you that's come directly to me for you for answering that question. Okay, the final question was about sibling rivalry. And basically, because I mentioned earlier that you don't want to be judge and jury, this is something that I have definitely experienced. It never works. Now, when you have siblings, two children that are fighting, this is what could typically happen. There's an older one, there's a younger one. I don't know, whatever the age gap is, there's an older one, younger one. You listen to the story. When you listen to both sides of the story, you are bound to actually understand one side. I'm not saying you don't understand, but you're bound to go, actually, but you kicked your brother first. Or actually, but you're bound to say something that feels like you're taking sides with one, because from your point of view, it makes sense. But what you haven't realized is that what you feel is an irrational behavior from the other one, say the younger one goes and aggravates the older one. And then you've heard both sides, and then you're taking sides with the older one thinking, but you younger one, why did you aggravate the older one? But what you don't realize is that that aggravation that the younger one did is because of something that they're feeling that is not, disconnected or dysregulated anyway. So when you take sides and say, yes, you were wrong to upset your brother in the first place or go to kick him in the first place, you have still made the younger one feel like you haven't heard me, you haven't listened to me. Let me try and explain this. That fight that is going on between both of them is hardly ever about the facts of who took my pencil or who was looking at me funny. There is something else going on. That's why we have to stop coming in as judge and jury. Even in a court case, they take weeks to find out everything that happened behind the scenes. So when you come in and try to settle it there, you are going to make one or both feel like they're not heard, they're not listened to, and you are actually creating more of an outburst. You never listen to me, it's always my fault. So my advice would be, when you have that kind of situation with a fight between siblings, just go in there. If your help is needed, go in there and listen to the both of them and make sure that both of them feel heard. So you can tell one to wait. Okay, can you wait? You start first. And I don't want you to interrupt. I just want to hear their side, because you'll be hearing, think he's lying, he's lying. You might want to take one away. And when you do this consistently, they get used to it, right? I'm going to listen to both of you. Your job is to listen and understand the needs of both children, not to say this person is right, this person is wrong. So when I did it wrong, a lot of the times, I started learning that I will go in and I'll say, right, okay, I'm going to listen to the both of you. Why don't you come first? And I'll take one person to my room. That person will explain everything to me. And they always explain better when the other sibling is not there, because they explain, they're not even telling you what happened anymore. They're telling you how they feel, because that's why they're fighting. And when I listen to that sibling, I'm able to say, I understand how you're feeling. I'm able to calm them down. I'm able to deal with that. And it's only when they're calm, they're able to hear me when I say, I know how you're feeling. When you kick, it doesn't actually help to communicate that feeling, okay? So I know why you kicked. Next time, can you think of something else you could have done? and they will have that conversation with you privately. Then I go to the next one and I listen. And trust me, the more you do it, the quicker you can do it. But don't try and be judge and jury. It never works. Listen to both needs. And then when they're calm, you can correct each one separately.
I remember something happened to me in my classroom a while. I just want to paint this picture so you can have a clearer understanding of like how the journey is and how it just doesn't happen overnight. Like one thing that used to trigger me was whining, right? So there was a child I once worked with, and every time she would go to the toilet, she struggled to turn the tap on, and she would get to the sink and she would go, "Wah!" and she'd just raise her hands and be like, "Wah!" And I found myself getting so triggered. I'm like, what is going on? Why are you? I wouldn't say it to her because at least I knew that much, but I knew that inside I was very triggered. I was irritated because you can talk normally, but when it comes to turning this tap on, all of a sudden you can't express it. It's just wah, you know. So I would find myself getting really triggered. Now I had to exit that situation, ask someone else to handle it. And I had to ask myself questions. Why am I triggered? Because I feel like she's very vocal, she's a confident child. Why isn't she able to just say, please help me turn the tap, or whatever she needs help? And at the time, I didn't know that it was turning the tap. I just knew every time it was toilet time, she would whine, and she would stand there and cry. So what I used to do was I would get irritated. I'm like, no, this child knows how to talk. So I would ignore her. And when you ignore, it gets worse because she's trying to get your attention. So she's building it more to get that attention. And so I had to ask myself, why are you triggered by this? So the first thing was to identify the trigger. Why am I triggered? I'm triggered because I believe she can't express herself. Okay, why isn't she expressing herself? So dealing with myself was the first step, which is why I totally agree with it being working on yourself first. So when I was able to say, okay, I'm the one that's triggered, that child needs my support. What do they need support to? They need support to regulate that emotion. What else do they need support? They need support to verbalize what exactly the issue is. So I had to change strategy from ignoring is not working, shouting and saying, you know how to do it, it's not working, because she's still whining. So what do I need to do? Change strategy. So first thing I did was, before she went to the toilet, I said to her, we're going to the toilet now, okay? Now, if you need help, touch my shoulder and ask for help. If you need help with anything, right? I'm right here to help you. So I prepared her before the tantrum even happened. So she went to the toilet and she rolled up her sleeves and she was struggling with her sleeves, and then she managed to get it. Now she got to the tap, she couldn't turn on the tap. And that's when I noticed that it happens when she struggles with the tap. So she put soap on her hands first, and then she can't open the tap. And she looked at the tap and she looked at the tap. And I said to her, do you need help? And she looked at me. Yes. I was like, okay, you need help. So can I turn the tap on for you? She said, yes. So I turned the tap on for her. When she finished washing her hands, I said to her, if you turn the tap on first before getting soap, it might help you. Try and do it. So she tries and figures that she can do it. I'm like, all right, now turn it off. She turns it off. Okay, turn it on again. She turns it on. Now take some soap. She takes some soap. Now wash your hands. She washed her hand and she puts it on. It doesn't mean that the next day she didn't. She still went to what is normal for her, which is to get to the tap and be, but all I needed to do was remind her, remember, what do you do first? Turn on the tap, okay? So she turned on the tap and she did it. And it took a while, but eventually now she just goes, turns on the tap, washes her hands. But I had to deal with me first and then find the solution. And for each child is different. I might have to do something completely different for a different child. It's knowing the child that, you know, helps you to even know how to respond to them. But I just wanted to give that example because it definitely starts with you.
Ma'am, that's amazing. And that's so practical, because I know that people, because you talked about starting with you and then you went on to observing what the actual issue is. Because once we hear the whining, we don't try and find out what the issue is. We just go crazy. Like, why is this happening? But once we actually observe and watch and see what the problem is, And you were only able to do that when you first looked at yourself, and then you went in and then you taught. And again, this is what I say about teaching. Teaching is not, I've told you so, I've told you before. Teaching, I mean, I prepare students for an exam. It takes me 2 years. You know, it's not, I told you so. Teaching takes patience and consistency. And in fact, showing that you're committed to it, they're more likely to want to listen to you because actually you care enough, you're invested enough. Okay, so that's my answer to that. And I really want to say thank you to everyone. Mems, I didn't even say any final words. Thank you to everyone for joining us. And Mems, can you tell us how people can get in touch with you?
Okay, I'm going to share my page, but I am on Instagram. Instagram is a very good way. I am quite active on there. Or you can email me at mems. You can email me at headstartng@gmail.com.
I offer a free, I'll just put some links to it. I offer a free clarity call for 30 minutes. So some of you have already been on this clarity call. You can definitely, thank you so much. You can definitely get in touch with me and I can speak to you for half an hour for free, just to understand what's going on behind the scenes. You've got MEMS as well. MEMS offers a consultation, so you can reach out to her and she can definitely help you out with your particular situation. I offer consultations as well, but free clarity call. Our Instagram pages are there to listen to. Oh, we mentioned the discipline course. So let me just put that link because I think it's such a good idea. It will just help out so much. People that I know have done it have come back and said, look, it's really helped them. So we need to understand what is discipline and what discipline isn't, because if we keep getting it wrong, then we have these issues we don't want to be dealing with. Okay, so you've got links there. You've got, so you can get in touch with us and we can help. We can definitely help. This is what we do. I think I love the fact that we are teachers. So we are with so many children all the time.
Every day.
Every day. All day, every day. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Thank you.